I paid for my daughter's entire wedding, and she didn't even invite me. Not just that, I got a bill afterward. A bill claiming I ruined the day I wasn't allowed to attend. Imagine that. Funding every detail, being pushed out completely, and then being blamed. I'm glad you're here, because you deserve to hear how a mother ends up erased from the biggest day of her only child's life. And maybe you'll understand how I survived losing my daughter long before I ever lost the invitation. Let me take you back, not to the wedding day, not to the moment the envelope arrived, and not even to the cold conversation that broke me. No, this begins years earlier, in a quiet home where I was just a mother trying to raise a daughter after her father passed away. I still remember that particular morning, sunlight filtering through the curtains, kettle whistling softly, the smell of freshly buttered toast. Life felt steady then. Lonely, yes. Hard, absolutely. But steady. My daughter, Lily, walked into the kitchen with her hair in a messy bun, wearing that oversized sweatshirt she'd practically lived in during college. She used to wear it on the nights she missed her father most. She never said that out loud, but mothers know. We sense things others miss. She grabbed a mug, poured her tea, and sat across from me with that familiar heaviness in her eyes, the one she got from me. Back then, I still believed we were a team. Two women carrying the same grief, trying to build a life out of memories and responsibilities. She used to curl up next to me on the sofa, head resting on my shoulder, telling me things she'd never tell her friends. She'd say, "Mom, if I ever get married, you're picking the flowers. You know how to make things beautiful." And I'd laugh, hiding the ache in my chest, because part of me feared I'd never see that day. That morning, I believed we were still close, still connected, still safe. But when she said, "Mom, I have something to tell you later," something inside me tightened. Her tone wasn't excited, not nervous, just distant. Mothers can feel when something shifts in the air. When a door quietly closes, one you didn't even realize had been open. Still, I brushed it off. I told myself she was tired, stressed, distracted, anything but pulling away from me. But that was the first crack. Hours later, she told me she was engaged. No smile, no spark, no "Mom, guess what?" Just a simple, flat, "I'm engaged." I hugged her anyway. I always reached first. She hugged back, but stiffly, like obligation, not affection. That night, I sat alone on the couch, staring at nothing. Her words kept replaying in my mind. Not the engagement itself, but the absence of joy. Absence of me in her joy. You know the feeling. Watching your child slip through your fingers and not knowing how to stop it? I felt it that day, and I would feel it 100 times more in the months that followed. But back then, I still had hope. I told myself a mother shouldn't read too much into things. I told myself she still needed me. I told myself she would include me. I was her mother, after all. But the first real warning came 2 weeks later. She asked for money, wedding money. Not gently, not gratefully, just expected. Like it was my role, my duty. I paid it. Of course I did. I paid every invoice she sent. Dress fittings, venue deposits, catering, photography, hair and makeup. I didn't hesitate once. I had spent years saving, working double shifts, cutting costs, giving up my personal dreams to give her a future her father would have been proud of. Each transfer of money felt like fulfilling a promise to the man I loved and lost. But each time, she drifted further. Her texts got shorter. Her calls disappeared. Her plans didn't include me anymore. She went cake tasting without me, venue shopping without me, dress shopping without me. I wasn't part of it, not even as a spectator, just a wallet in the background. But I still told myself she'd invite me. Of course she would invite me. No daughter excludes her own mother from her wedding day, right? I clung to that thought like a lifeline. But then the envelope came. Cream-colored, elegant, heavy paper, expensive, no doubt paid for by me. I opened it, expecting an invitation. What I got instead was a confirmation of the final guest list from the wedding planner. I scanned down the list once, twice, again. My name wasn't there, not even on the family page. I reread every line, convinced I'd missed something. But no, I wasn't a guest. I wasn't welcome. I wasn't even acknowledged. My chest tightened in a way I can't explain. A squeeze so deep I thought I might collapse right there in the hallway. Still, denial is a powerful thing. I stood at the kitchen counter whispering, there has to be a mistake. She wouldn't do this. She wouldn't do this to me. But something in me knew. The little distance in her tone. The rushed goodbyes. The secretive texts. The wedding decision she kept from me. It wasn't accidental. It was intentional. And the worst part? She didn't explain. She didn't apologize. She didn't even send a simple message like, Mom, we need to talk. Nothing. Just silence. And then, days later, after everything I had paid for, after every moment of exclusion, after every warning sign, I received another envelope. This time, not from the planner, from my daughter. A bill. A bill for the wedding damages. Damages. At an event I wasn't even invited to. That bill wasn't simply insulting. It was confirmation. Confirmation that somewhere along the line, the daughter I raised with every ounce of love I had stopped seeing me as family. And that, more than the exclusion, more than the lies, was the wound that broke me. But trust me, this story isn't about being erased. It's about what I did after I discovered the truth, and how everything changed the moment I decided I wouldn't stay silent anymore. To understand how deeply everything cut me later, you need to know how life looked before the wedding ever became a nightmare. Because the truth is, things didn't shatter suddenly. They cracked slowly, quietly, like tiny fractures in a mirror you don't notice until the whole reflection distorts. My home wasn't luxurious, but it was warm. A small two-bedroom house with sun-faded curtains and a garden patch my late husband used to joke was more weeds than flowers. When he passed away, I kept everything as it was. I left his mug beside the sink, his jacket hanging on the chair, his favorite book on the nightstand. Not because I refused to move on, but because removing those things felt like deleting pieces of him. Lily grew up in that home. Every wall held a memory. Her height marks by the doorframe, her drawings pinned to the fridge, her teenage posters still tacked behind her bedroom door. After her father died, she was only 14, too young to process the loss, too old to ignore it. She slept in my bed for weeks, clutching my arm at night, waking up at the smallest sound. I remember stroking her hair while she whispered, Mom, don't disappear too. And I promised her I'd stay. Promised her I'd carry us both. And I did. Years passed, and I learned how to cook his favorite dishes so she'd feel connected to him. I worked double shifts to pay her school fees. I skipped vacations, skipped outings, skipped personal luxury so she would never feel the world was taking more from her. I was proud of the way she grew. Kind-hearted, hardworking, soft in all the ways I feared life would harden her. We were close, or at least, I believed we were. Sunday brunch became our sacred tradition. She'd sit on the counter while I whisked pancake batter, telling me everything. School gossip, crushes, dreams, fears. She'd say, Mom, you're my safe place. And I'd pretend my heart wasn't breaking from gratitude and grief. After she graduated college, she drifted a little, naturally. Life moves. Young adults create their own rhythms. Her weekly calls turned into bi-weekly ones. Her visits home became less frequent. But she always came back. Always curled up on the sofa like she used to. Always asked me to braid her hair when she was stressed. I held on to those moments. They felt like threads tying us together, even as the world kept pulling her forward. Then she met Ethan. The first time she mentioned him, her voice sounded different, lighter, almost hopeful. I asked if she liked him. She bit her lip, trying to hide a smile. Maybe, she said. A mother knows. When she finally brought him home, I felt a strange mix of emotions, excitement for her, fear of losing her. Ethan was polite, well-spoken, confident in a way that wasn't rude, but firm. Still, I sensed a barrier, something closed off behind his smile. He looked at my home the way people look at places that don't match their lifestyle. Not with disgust, just with unfamiliarity. I tried to connect. I asked questions. I listened. I offered food, tea, hospitality. But something in his tone made it clear my world wasn't his world. And I wasn't someone he planned to fold into his life easily. Still, Lily seemed happy. Happiness matters more than instincts sometimes. Months passed. They grew closer. Their relationship deepened. Lily's life got busier. She visited less, stayed over with him more. I didn't question it. That's what growing up looks like. I wanted her to be free, not chained to her grief or to me. But the tiny shifts began. She became more guarded with her phone. Her stories about Ethan's family grew vague. She changed the subject when I asked about wedding traditions or what his parents were like. One night, while doing dishes, she said, "Mom, his family is very traditional." The way she said traditional carried weight. Cautious, hesitant. I asked her what that meant. She shrugged and said, "They have strong opinions. About everything." I didn't think much of it at the time. I should have. But back then, my biggest worry was whether she was eating enough, sleeping enough, loving herself enough. Then, one afternoon, she came home with a look I recognized instantly, a look of life-changing news. She stood in the doorway, twisting her ring finger unconsciously. "Mom," she said softly, "Ethan proposed." I felt my heart lurch. A mix of joy and sadness swept through me like a rush of wind. "Oh, sweetheart," I whispered, hugging her. She hugged back, but briefly. Her arms didn't cling like they used to. Her breast didn't tremble with excitement. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Something felt wrong. But I told myself she was overwhelmed. I didn't want to project my fears. She showed me the ring, a simple diamond. Pretty, understated. "Do you like it?" she asked. "I love it," I said truthfully. I waited for her to tell me the story of the proposal. She didn't. I waited for her to ask me to help plan. She didn't. I waited for her to show me the Pinterest board of wedding ideas she'd once created and told me I would help bring to life. She didn't. Instead, she said, "We'll talk about everything later. It's been a long day." And she went to bed early. That night, the house felt heavier than usual. I sat on the sofa with a blanket around my shoulders, staring at the wall. My phone lay beside me, silent. No text from her. No follow-up. No excitement. When you raise a child alone, they become your heartbeat. And when that heartbeat starts feeling distant, something inside you aches in ways you can't articulate. But I told myself it would pass. Weddings are stressful. Engagements can be overwhelming. She'd need me eventually. The first sign of exclusion. 2 weeks later, she asked me about helping with the budget, which really meant paying for it. I didn't blink. I didn't ask questions. I just said yes, because isn't that what mothers do? Step in when needed. Support without being asked twice. Fill in the gaps life creates. So I paid. Every invoice she forwarded. Every deposit she needed. Every urgent expense that came up. Venue fees. Dress fittings. Catering. Photography. Bridesmaids' robes. Decorations. Music. Lighting. Even the invitation printing. I remember sitting at my small kitchen table late at night, transferring money again and again, whispering, "It's okay. It's for her. It's for her happiness." But the more I paid, the less she included me. She didn't show me her dress. She didn't ask for my opinion on flowers. She didn't tell me about her bridesmaids. She stopped mentioning Ethan's family completely. And anytime I brought up wedding plans, her response was always the same. "Oh, Mom, it's all handled." Handled by whom? Handled how? Handled why? I didn't know, because she never told me. One evening, I gently said, "Sweetheart, I'd love to see the venue with you." Her body stiffened just slightly, a tiny, quick tension in her shoulders that lasted less than a second. "Oh, we already went with Ethan's family last weekend." Already went. Without me. Without even mentioning it. "That's okay," I said softly, trying not to let the disappointment show. "Next time, But she didn't say yes. She didn't say next time. She just forced a smile and said, "Sure, Mom." A lie told kindly is still a lie. The seed of suspicion. The moment everything subtly shifted was small, so small most people would have missed it. We were folding laundry together, something we used to do while watching reality TV and gossiping about contestants. But that night, she was distracted, glancing at her phone, checking messages, smirking at something she didn't share. When I stepped away to grab hangers, her phone buzzed. She didn't hear it, and the screen lit up with a preview. "Did you tell her yet?" My heart skipped. Then another. "You can't avoid it forever." Then, "She'll understand. Or maybe she won't. But it has to be done." I didn't want to read more. I didn't want to become the mother who snoops. But pain doesn't ask for permission. It just settles in your chest and stays. I swallowed hard. When I came back, she flipped her phone over instantly. And in that subtle, guilty motion, the truth whispered to me in the quietest voice. Something was wrong. Something big. And I wasn't part of it. But mothers cling to hope like oxygen. And I told myself, no, she would never exclude me. Never. I didn't know then how wrong I was, because the real betrayal was still coming. Slowly, quietly, inevitable. The slow unraveling didn't happen in one dramatic moment. It was a collection of small shifts, tiny details that didn't make sense at first, like breadcrumbs leading toward a truth I wasn't ready to face. It truly began one Saturday morning, a morning that should have been ordinary. I woke early, habit, routine, survival. The kettle whistled, the roses in my backyard were bending slightly with the breeze, and a soft, warm light filled the kitchen. I made tea for myself, and I made one for Lily too, out of habit, even though she hadn't joined me in weekend breakfast for months. But today, she actually came downstairs. I heard her footsteps, soft, hesitant. When she walked into the kitchen, she wasn't wearing pajamas like usual. She was dressed, hair done, makeup subtle but fresh. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw me. "Oh," she said, trying to sound casual. "You're awake." "I'm always awake at this time," I said gently. She gave a tight smile and sat down, but not fully. More like she was waiting, on edge, ready to leave. I slid the cup of tea toward her. "Thank you," she murmured, but didn't take a sip. Her fingers drummed on the table, restless. "You're up early," I said, watching her carefully. She shrugged. "Lots to do. Wedding errands. Anything I can help with?" "No," she said quickly, too quickly. Her voice had an edge of panic to it, as if the suggestion of my involvement threatened something she'd planned. She looked at the clock. "I actually need to go soon." "So early?" I asked softly. "Yes, we're on a schedule." "We." Not I. Not Ethan and I. Not the planner and I. We. I didn't ask who we was, but I felt something twist inside me. She stood up suddenly. "I'll see you later, Mom." And just like that, she was at the door. "Lily," I said, stopping her. "Are you okay?" She hesitated, her hand on the door handle, her shoulders stiff. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just stressed. Don't worry." Her tone wasn't reassuring. It was dismissive. Then she left, the door closing behind her. The silence she left behind felt heavier than usual. That was the moment the seed of suspicion finally rooted itself. Because mothers know. We know when our child is hiding something. And my daughter, she was hiding something huge. The first tangible clue. 2 days later, the wedding planner called me. And that conversation shifted everything. "Hi, is this Mrs. Hale?" she asked cheerfully. "Yes, this is she. Just wanted to go over final payment details and guest confirmations." I frowned. "Guest confirmations?" "Yes," she said cheerfully. "We just want to make sure we have final counts. Will you be attending the ceremony?" The question felt like someone had dropped a stone into my stomach. I blinked, caught off guard, confused. "What do you mean, will I be attending?" I asked. "I'm the mother." There was a pause, longer than professional politeness allows. A hesitation that cracked open another warning. "Oh, yes, of course," she said quickly, her tone tightening. "I just meant, well, I haven't personally seen your name on the list yet, but I assumed." "You haven't seen my name," I repeated, my heart beating in my ears. "The lists change often," she rushed. "I'm sure it's there. I'll confirm with Lily and get back to you." She didn't. Not that day. Not ever. And she never mentioned that call again. But I couldn't forget it. A planner who sees every detail of the event couldn't miss the mother of the bride. Not unless my name wasn't meant to be there in the first place. After that call, the silence inside my house felt different. Heavier. Sharper. More dangerous. I kept replaying every conversation, every shift in Lily's tone, every evasive moment. And slowly, dread began to fill the spaces hope used to live in. The invitation's mystery. The next sign came from someone who had no idea they were delivering a blow. I was at the grocery store, picking up herbs, when an old neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, walked up with a smile. "Oh, congratulations on the big day coming up," she said warmly. I smiled politely. "Yes, it's exciting." "My daughter received her invitation last week," she added casually. I froze. "Invitation?" I repeated. Yes, the envelope was beautiful. Cream-colored, gold trim. Elegant. My heart thudded painfully. I forced a smile. "Oh, nice," I said quietly. But inside, everything was spinning. The invitations had gone out. To neighbors. To friends. To acquaintances. But not to me. Not a single envelope in my mailbox. I walked home in a fog, shopping bags cutting into my hands. The second I entered the house, I checked the mailbox again. Empty. Checked under the doormat. Nothing. I even checked the porch corners like a desperate woman searching for proof she hadn't been forgotten. Nothing. My name was absent everywhere that mattered, and that absence spoke louder than any apology ever could. The phone messages, the first confirmation. A few nights later, something happened that turned silent suspicion into undeniable certainty. I was passing the living room when I heard her phone buzz repeatedly. Lily was in the shower, and her phone was on the couch. I didn't mean to look. I didn't want to look. But when a notification lights up and displays the first few words, it's impossible not to read them. So she still doesn't know. Another buzz. You have to tell her eventually. Then, it's better coming from you than someone else. And worst of all, she might overreact. Just stick to the plan. Stick to the plan. My chest tightened. A plan I didn't know about. A plan she discussed with others. A plan that involved me, without including me. I stood there frozen, fingers curled at my sides, heart pounding against my ribcage. Her footsteps echoed down the hall. I quickly stepped away, pretending to rearrange a vase. She entered the living room, saw her phone, snatched it quickly, and pressed it to her chest like it was something fragile. She didn't look at me, didn't speak, just walked past with guilt screaming from every step. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling a cold realization sink deeper. She wasn't just excluding me from wedding planning. She was hiding the fact that she had excluded me entirely. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't imagining it. She really didn't want me there. The final PRE warning. It happened the next morning. She was having coffee, scrolling through her phone, when she sighed heavily. "What's wrong?" I asked. She hesitated, barely a second, but I saw it. "Just everything," she said. "Wedding stress. Family stress." "Mine?" I asked gently. She flinched. "No, Mom, not like that." But her tone, thin, brittle, said the opposite. Then she said the words that sealed everything inside me with dread. "Just trust me, okay? Everything will work out." Trust me. The same words people use when they are hiding something too big to say out loud. A chill crawled up my spine. Because when your child says trust me, but looks away as they say it, they don't want trust. They want silence. They want you to stop asking questions. They want you to accept something you won't like. And she knew, deep inside, that the truth of what she was doing would break me. But she was doing it anyway, because she thought the wedding would be easier without her mother, because she thought I'd be emotional, because she thought grief made me unfit to attend. She didn't say any of that yet, but the signs were everywhere. Her distance, her secrecy, the missing invitation, the planner's awkward hesitation, the messages from friends, the late-night phone notifications. Everything pointed toward one devastating truth. My daughter was planning her wedding without me. Not just without my help, without my presence, without my existence. And the worst part? The confirmation was still coming. Painful, direct, inescapable. The moment when suspicion would turn into discovery. And in that moment, something inside me would break in a way I could never fully repair. The truth didn't crash into me all at once. It crept in quietly, like a shadow slipping under a door, spreading across my life until everything felt dimmer, colder, harder to breathe. The moment of discovery, the real, undeniable confirmation, happened on a Wednesday afternoon. And ironically, it started with something so ordinary I almost didn't realize it was the beginning of heartbreak. Lily came home earlier than usual. I was folding laundry in the living room when the front door opened abruptly. She entered looking flustered, cheeks flushed, hair messy, keys clutched tightly in her hand. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said, too quickly. "Just a long day." She wasn't lying, but she wasn't telling the truth either. She paced for a few seconds, tapping her phone anxiously. Then her screen lit up with a message. She didn't open it, just stayed at it, frozen. I caught a glimpse of the sender's name, Maya, her maid of honor. Then I saw the preview. "Did you tell your mom yet?" My breath caught. Something inside me twisted painfully. She locked her phone instantly, like a guilty reflex. "I'm gonna shower," she said, voice tight. She disappeared into the hallway, and a few seconds later, I heard her door slam shut. The air in the house felt off, thick with something unspoken. When she finally emerged, quiet, distant, avoiding eye contact, I knew something was wrong. Really wrong. But the full truth didn't reveal itself until the next morning. The binder. I was cleaning her room, something I still did sometimes despite her age, when I found it. Her wedding binder. Lily never left it lying around. It was usually in her bag or locked in her cabinet. But that morning, it was half hidden beneath a sweater on the floor. Unprotected. Almost like the universe was giving me access to the truth I was too afraid to ask for. My hands trembled slightly as I picked it up. I shouldn't look. I knew that. I told myself it wasn't my place. But mothers break their own rules when love collides with fear. I opened it. The first page, venue details. I scanned them quickly, not because I cared about centerpieces or table linens, but because I needed to see one simple thing. List of attending family members. My name wasn't there. My chest tightened. But I kept flipping pages. Catering notes. Costs that I paid. Food tastings I was never invited to. Photo session schedule. Group shots planned for the groom's family. Bridesmaid candids. Couple portraits. But not one mention of mother of the bride. Not one. I turned the page again, heart beating louder. Ceremony seating. Rows drawn neatly, each seat labeled. Her father's side? Empty. Of course, he didn't live to see this day. But I expected at least one seat labeled Mom. There wasn't. Instead, I saw a line written in her handwriting. Keep ceremony small. No unnecessary emotional triggers. Emotional triggers. That's what I was now. I swallowed hard, blinking rapidly as tears blurred the ink on the page. I kept flipping. Reception layout. Tables labeled. Groom's family. Bridal party. Close friends. Cousins. Aunts and uncles. But nowhere, not a single circle or box, was there a spot for me. Not even a backup seat. Not even a to be assigned. Nothing. And then I saw a note. Family table, groom's side only. Only. That word punched the air out of my lungs. I pressed my hand to my chest, trying to steady my breathing. Still, a part of me held onto hope, clinging desperately like someone refusing to drown. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she hadn't updated the chart. Maybe she forgot to write my name. My shaky fingers turned to the next page. And that's when the truth broke me completely. The father-daughter dance, erased. A line at the top of the page read, Special Moments Timeline. I skimmed down. Cake cutting. Speeches. Feist dance. Then, mother-daughter dance, removed. Removed. Next to it, in her handwriting, too emotional. Skip. A sharp pain shot through my chest. When she was little, she used to climb onto my feet and sway as I played music. She'd giggle and say, Mom, one day we'll dance like princesses at my wedding. And now, in her wedding binder, her adult handwriting, mature and sure, she had erased that moment without a second thought. Not altered, not postponed, removed. I pressed the binder to my chest, closing my eyes tight, trying to stop the trembling in my shoulders. The room felt like it was closing in on me. Her voice in the hallway. Later that afternoon, she came home with Ethan. I was heading to my room when I heard them whispering in the hallway. Their voices were muffled, but not enough to hide the truth. I can't tell her, Lily said, her voice cracking. I can't. You have to, Ethan replied. We're past the point of hiding it. My heart dropped. It'll break her, she whispered. She'll get over it, he said, too calmly. The wedding is about us, not her. Not her. Those words echoed like a slap. Lily sniffled. What if she cries? What if she makes a scene? She won't make a scene, he said. She's not invited. My knees buckled. I leaned against the wall, hand covering my mouth. Not invited. Hearing it out loud, plain, unfiltered, felt like having my heart ripped open. She doesn't need to be there, Ethan continued. It'll just be awkward. Your mom gets emotional. Emotional. As if that was a flaw. As if grief made me unworthy. As if losing my husband meant I couldn't be part of my daughter's joy. She's handled enough, Ethan said. We want a clean wedding. No tears. No complications. Clean. No complications. Was I a complication now? My daughter's voice trembled. I know, but she paid for everything. She chose to, he replied flatly. Paying doesn't mean she gets automatic access. Automatic access. I felt physically ill. My daughter, my baby, whispered, she'll be devastated. A pause. Then Ethan said the words that changed everything inside me. She doesn't need to know until after. By the time she finds out, it'll be over. Over. Like my presence would taint her day. Like avoiding me was easier than telling the truth. I stood there, frozen in the hallway, tears sliding down my face silently, my hand clamped over my mouth to stop the sob that threatened to escape. My daughter didn't want me there. Not as a mother. Not as family. Not even as a guest. I wasn't a part of her future. Only her finances. The lowest point. That night, I collapsed onto my bed and cried harder than I had since my husband died. Not quiet tears. Not a trembling chin. Full-body sobs that left me breathless and shaking. Sobs that tore through me like grief all over again. Grief for a daughter who was still alive but no longer mine. I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment of motherhood. Her first steps, her scraped knees, her teenage heartbreaks, her whispered fears at night. And for the first time ever, I asked myself, was I ever enough for her? A question no mother should ever ask. But I couldn't deny the truth anymore. She didn't think I was strong enough to attend. She didn't think I was stable enough to handle emotions. She didn't think I belonged in her new life. And the most painful part, I had no idea why. I had loved her with everything I had, every sacrifice, every late-night shift, every tear I hid from her. But none of it mattered. I wasn't invited. I wasn't included. I wasn't wanted. And that realization broke something inside me so deeply I felt physically numb. The final confirmation, the email. The next morning, still raw and exhausted, I checked my email. A message popped up from the venue. Final guest count confirmed. Thank you. Attached was the updated list. I opened it. Names and numbers blurred before clearing into sharp, painful clarity. And there it was, every guest, every seat, every family section, except me. Not a mistake, not an oversight, a deliberate exclusion. The world didn't end in that moment. It didn't explode or collapse. It simply dimmed, a quiet, devastating dimming. And that was the moment I finally understood. I wasn't losing my daughter at the wedding. I had already lost her months ago. And the hardest part? I still didn't know the real reason why. For days after discovering I wasn't invited, I moved through my own home like a ghost, breathing, functioning, eating, but not really living. Pain has a strange way of numbing you. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers until you can't hear anything else. I'd wake up, stare at the ceiling, and feel nothing but heaviness in my chest. I'd boil water, watch steam rise, and think this was supposed to be a joyful time. Instead, it felt like grief all over again. Except this time, the person I was grieving was still alive, my own daughter. But eventually, something inside me shifted. It wasn't anger, not yet, and not revenge, not exactly. It was clarity, a slow, steady realization. I was done letting myself be sidelined, done being erased quietly, done letting love make me blind. Because the truth was brutally simple. I had given everything, emotionally, financially, physically, and she had taken it all while pushing me further away. The pain didn't disappear, but it hardened, became sharper, more defined, and with that clarity came resolve. I wasn't going to fight her. I wasn't going to beg, or plead, or demand to be included. I wasn't going to make a scene or force myself into a place I was deliberately excluded from. No, I was going to reclaim something far more important, my dignity. And that's when the planning, quiet, structured, deliberate, began. The list. It started with something simple. A notebook. I sat at the kitchen table, heart pounding with a strange new steadiness, and wrote down everything I had paid for. Every deposit, every invoice, every transfer, every urgent expense, every mom, please, just this one more payment. I flipped through bank statements, pulled up emails, printed receipts. I even checked my messages, tracing every thank you that had turned into silence. By the end, the list covered nearly 4 pages. I stared at the total cost, the number so high it would have made anyone else gasp. I didn't gasp. I just felt cold. Not the cold of winter, the cold of truth. I had financed a wedding I wasn't part of, a celebration whose doors were closed in my face, a day meant for love, built on betrayal. But here's the thing. Money given out of love means nothing when the person you gave it to doesn't respect you. And that realization hurt more than any invoice ever could. The moment of resolve. I sat there, tapping my pen against the table, heart beating slow but steady. A sentence formed in my mind, one I had never allowed myself to consider. She doesn't get to treat me this way without consequences. Not revenge, not spite. Consequences. Healthy consequences. Boundaries I should have enforced years ago. Respect I deserved but never demanded. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to throw accusations. I wasn't going to embarrass her publicly. I was simply going to stop letting myself be used. Stop enabling her silence. Stop carrying the burden alone. But before I made any decision, I needed to hear the truth from her lips, not whispered behind a door, not seen in a binder, not overheard from someone else. I needed her to say it to me, face to face. I deserved that much. So I decided I would confront her, calmly but firmly, not to fight, but to reclaim my voice. The confrontation. Sunday morning felt like the right time. Sundays had always been ours. Breakfasts, conversations, little traditions that once tied us together. Now, they were just painful memories. But I still chose Sunday. Maybe because some part of me hoped the familiarity would help her be honest. She came home late morning, hair damp from a shower, wearing a light sweater. She looked tired, not physically, but emotionally, like someone carrying a secret too heavy for her arms. "Morning, Mom," she said softly, but her eyes didn't meet mine. "Lily," I said quietly, "sit with me." We need to talk. She froze, not dramatically, just a small, involuntary stiffening in her shoulders. Now, she asked, almost pleading. Yes, I said. Now. Reluctantly, she sat at the table across from me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. It felt like the room was holding its breath. Then I asked, in the calmest voice I had, why am I not invited to your wedding? Her face drained of color. It was the first time she heard the question directly. The first time she realized the truth wasn't hidden anymore. Mom, I was going to talk to you, she whispered. When? I asked. After the ceremony. She flinched. I didn't want to hurt you. You did. Her eyes filled instantly, tears pooling, falling. I didn't want you to feel overwhelmed, she said quietly. It's a lot. Weddings are emotional. And you? Me. I pressed gently. You get emotional, she whispered, looking away. And I didn't want people to judge. There it was, the truth, not softened, not hidden, blunt and cutting. You thought I'd embarrass you. No, she said quickly, too quickly. Mom, it's not that. It's just, I know how much you still miss Dad. And I didn't want you to see me walk down the aisle and fall apart. I thought protecting you would make it easier. Protecting me by excluding me, protecting me by lying, protecting me by taking my money but not my presence. I inhaled slowly, fighting the sting in my eyes. Lily, you didn't protect me. You hurt me. I know, she whispered, sobbing quietly. I know, Mom, and I'm so sorry. I was scared. Of what? I asked softly. She wiped her eyes. Of losing control, she said. Of crying in front of people. Of grieving Dad in the middle of my wedding. Of seeing your face and breaking down. Her honesty cracked something inside me. Not pain, but understanding. Not forgiveness. Not yet, but understanding. Still, it didn't excuse what she'd done. You could have talked to me, I said gently. You didn't need to hide. I know, she whispered. I know. But everyone kept saying it would be easier if I wasn't there. She cried harder, covering her face. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I let her cry. I didn't comfort her this time. Not because I didn't love her, but because for once she needed to feel the consequences of her choices. When she finally calmed, she whispered, What happens now? And that's when the resolve inside me solidified. The shift in me. Now, I said quietly, now I take care of myself. She looked confused, scared. What does that mean? It means, I said, I'm done paying for anything else. It means I'm not covering your mistakes, your damages, your changes, or your emergencies. It means if you want me in your life, you need to treat me like family, not an inconvenience. Her breath hitched. Mom, please, don't cut me out. I felt my heart twist painfully, because even then, even after everything, I didn't want to cut her out. I just wanted respect. I'm not cutting you out, I said softly, but I'm done being treated like I don't matter. Silence fell again, but this time it didn't feel suffocating. It felt like clarity, like truth, like the beginning of something different, something healthier, something stronger, because the turning point wasn't the confrontation. It was the moment I realized I had worth, I had boundaries, and I would no longer let my love be used against me. The hurt was still there, beating quietly beneath my ribs, but something new had taken root. A quiet strength, a cold steadiness, a resolve shaped not by anger, but by self-respect. And that resolve would guide every choice I made next. Choices that would lead to the climax. Choices that would change everything. The morning of Lily's wedding arrived like a memory I didn't belong to. Not a single message from her. No good morning. No, I'm nervous. No, I wish you were here. Just silence. A silence that confirmed everything I had discovered, everything she had admitted, everything she was still too ashamed to say out loud. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time. Not crying, not shaking, Just breathing. Slow, steady breaths that felt foreign inside a chest used to heartbreak. Today was her wedding day. A day I had paid for. A day I had once dreamed of attending. A day I had imagined sitting in the front row, watching my daughter walk toward her future. Instead, I was just the woman who funded it. Not the mother. Not the guest. Not even the afterthought. But grief wasn't steering me anymore. Resolve was. The confrontation 2 days earlier had shifted something inside me, pulled me out of the fog of pain and into a clarity sharper than anger. I wasn't going to her wedding. I wasn't going to stand outside and watch through some fence. I wasn't going to beg for a seat that was deliberately taken away from me. I was going to take back something far more powerful than a seat. My voice, my dignity, my truth. And truth delivered at the right moment changes everything. The venue. I didn't dress up. I didn't wear makeup. I didn't curl my hair. I wore a simple coat, tied my hair back, and left my house with a calmness that felt unreal. The venue was a beautiful lakeside event hall about 40 minutes away. I knew because I had paid the entire deposit. I parked on the far end of the property, a quiet gravel lot where vendors sometimes parked. Not close, not visible. I wasn't there to be seen. I was there to choose the moment I'd take my power back. As I approached the venue, I could hear music playing softly, people chatting, laughter, clinking glasses, so many voices, so many people who received invitations, neighbors, friends of friends, distant relatives of Ethan, everyone except the one person who had raised her. I stood just behind the line of tall white roses that decorated the entrance walkway, hidden, but close enough to see the flow of movement. Bridesmaids in lavender dresses giggled as they fixed each other's hair. Groomsmen checked their ties. Ethan's mother barked orders at a photographer. Everything was vibrant, perfect, flawlessly staged. And then she came out. My daughter. Lily stepped out of the reception hall in her wedding dress, ivory lace, fitted bodice, soft tulle skirt. Beautiful, radiant, glowing. My breath caught painfully. For a moment, the mother in me resurfaced. The mother who remembered brushing her hair, tying her shoes, holding her during thunderstorms. My eyes instinctively filled, but I blinked the tears away. Because today wasn't about my emotions. Today was about truth. She didn't see me immediately. She was adjusting her veil, surrounded by bridesmaids fussing over her. But then one of them glanced toward the rose bushes. Her eyes widened. She whispered something urgently. Lily turned. Her gaze searched the space, scanning slowly, hesitantly, fearfully. And then she saw me. Her face cracked. Not with anger, not with annoyance, with shock, then guilt, then something like fear. She took one step toward me, then another. Her bouquet trembled in her hands. But I didn't move. I didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't cry. I simply stood there, steadily, silently, unshakably. A mother she tried to erase, a presence she couldn't ignore. "Mom," she whispered. I couldn't hear her voice, but I saw the word leave her lips. Ethan appeared quickly, walking toward her with subtle panic hidden beneath a polished expression. He glanced at me with a look I know all too well, the look people give you when they think you're going to cause trouble. He stepped slightly in front of Lily, as if shielding her. I didn't step closer, didn't shout, didn't accuse. I simply turned around and walked away, back through the roses, back up the path, back toward the gravel lot. I didn't give them a moment, didn't give them a scene, didn't give them control, because what was coming next didn't require my presence. It required my words. The email. When I reached my car, I sat in the driver's seat and exhaled, eyes closed. Then I opened my phone. The email draft I had prepared the day before was sitting there, waiting. Subject line: regarding all wedding payments and attendance clarification. 2. The venue, the catering team, the photographer, the florist, the decor company, the DJ, the planner, Ethan, Ethan's parents, and Lily, every single vendor, every person involved, every party that assumed the bride's mother was absent voluntarily. My hands didn't tremble. My breath didn't shake. I hit send. Then I put my phone down and simply breathed. Not triumph, not vengeance, just release. The truth they couldn't escape. The email wasn't dramatic. I wrote it with dignity, calmness, factual precision. I explained. I had financed the entire wedding. I had not been invited to attend. I had been excluded from all planning decisions. My presence had been intentionally removed due to concerns about emotional disruption. I would not be responsible for any additional charges, damages, or last-minute expenses. All vendors were expected to direct post-wedding invoices to Lily and Ethan, not me. No insults, no accusations, just truth. Truth delivered to an audience wide enough that hiding it would be impossible. Because lies thrive in silence. And I was done being silent. The calls and chaos. It took 10 minutes. 10 minutes before my phone vibrated violently on the passenger seat. First call, the planner. Ignored. Second call, Ethan. Declined. Third call, Ethan again. Declined harder. Fourth call, Lily. I stared at her name glowing on the screen. Then I answered. Her voice burst out instantly, shaky, panicked, on the edge of tears. Mom, what did you do? Her wedding music played faintly behind her voice. People murmured in the background. Someone was calling her name. What did I do? I repeated. I told the truth. Mom, everyone is asking questions. The planner is freaking out. Ethan's mom is. This isn't about them, I cut in calmly. It's my wedding day, she cried. Why would you do this today? Because today is the day you excluded me, I said quietly. Today is the day you hoped I'd stay silent. There was a long pause. Then she whispered, voice cracking. You should have talked to me, not emailed everyone. I tried, I said. But you made decisions without me. You didn't want me there. And I accepted that. But you don't get to take my money and my dignity. She sobbed. I heard bridesmaids calling for her. Heard Ethan telling her they had to start. Heard the panic in her breath as everything spiraled. You ruined it, she whispered. Mom, you ruined my wedding. I closed my eyes. No, Lily, I said softly. I didn't ruin anything. I revealed everything you were trying to hide. She cried harder. Not tears of sadness. Tears of consequence. Mom, what do I do? She whispered. You face what you chose, I replied. And maybe one day you learn from it. Then I ended the call. My hand didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I felt something else instead. Peace, for the first time in months. Because the climax wasn't my presence at her wedding. It was my refusal to stay invisible. My truth, spoken calmly and publicly, without venom, was more powerful than any confrontation I could have caused in person. And as I drove away from the venue, the sun warm on my face, I knew. I hadn't ruined her wedding. I had reclaimed myself. The morning after the wedding, the world felt strangely hollow. Not sharp, not loud, just empty. A kind of quiet that doesn't soothe, it lingers. It sits beside you like a reminder of everything that happened, everything that broke, everything that still needs to be rebuilt, or let go. I didn't wake early the way I normally do. For the first time in months, I let myself stay in bed. Not because I was sad, not because I was grieving, but because I was exhausted. Deeply, bone-deep exhausted. From months of worrying, from walking on eggshells, from crying quietly in the dark, from hiding my pain to protect a daughter who didn't protect me back. When I finally got up, sunlight was spilling through the curtains. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that used to scare me after my husband died, but now felt neutral. Not welcoming, not threatening, just there. I made myself tea, sat at the kitchen table, and let the steam rise into the silence. Then I checked my phone. It was full of notifications, missed calls, emails, messages from unknown numbers, apologies disguised as professionalism, accusations disguised as concern. I didn't open any of them. Not at first. I just stayed at the screen, breathing slowly, letting the weight of everything settle without crushing me this time. After a few minutes, I finally scrolled. The planner, hi. We're very sorry for the misunderstanding. Please advise on how you'd like to proceed with remaining balances. The venue, we received your notice. We were unaware of your exclusion. Please confirm if you would like a revised contract. The florist, thank you for the clarification. Please direct final charges to the couple. Ethan's mother, a very long message accusing me of creating unnecessary drama on a sacred day. I didn't respond. The wedding wasn't sacred. It was orchestrated perfection built on lies I wasn't willing to carry anymore. And then there were Lily's messages. Dozens of them. Some long, some frantic, some heartbreakingly short. Mom, please talk to me. I didn't expect this fallout. Everyone is asking questions. Ethan is furious. I'm sorry. Please don't ignore me. Her pain was obvious, but so was her confusion. She still believed the issue was the email, not the betrayal. I didn't respond immediately. For the first time in a long time, I didn't rush to calm her. Didn't rush to fix things. Didn't rush to protect her at my own expense. I took my time. Hours later, I sent only one message. We'll talk tomorrow. She replied instantly. Thank you, Mom. But I didn't talk that day. I needed the space more than she needed the clarity. The meeting. The next afternoon, we met at a small cafe she used to love as a teenager. A quiet place with soft lighting and floral pattern chairs, the kind of place where heavy conversations feel slightly softer. I got there first. She walked in a minute later, and the moment our eyes met, I saw her. Not the bride. Not the grown woman who excluded me. Not the person who broke my heart. I saw my child. Scared. Guilty. Lust. Trying to hold herself together. She sat down slowly. Her voice cracked on the first word. Mom. And just like that, tears filled her eyes. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I messed everything up. I didn't say anything. Not yet. She needed to speak first. To spill the truth without my questions guiding it. She took a shuddering breath. I didn't invite you because I didn't trust myself, she said softly. Not because I didn't love you, but because I was terrified. I swallowed hard. She continued. I knew the moment I saw you walking toward me in that dress, I'd break. I'd think about Dad. I'd think about everything you've carried. And I didn't want to fall apart on a day that was supposed to be joyful. Her throat tightened. I thought I was protecting both of us, but instead, I hurt the one person who's always stood by me. I looked down briefly, letting her words sink in. It wasn't an excuse, but it was a truth, one I needed to hear. Then she whispered something that shattered me in a new way. I was afraid you'd cry, because if you did, I knew I wouldn't be able to hold myself together. A tear slid down her cheek. I was afraid you'd remind me of him. I was afraid I'd panic. Afraid I'd ruin the whole ceremony. Her voice cracked completely. So I thought keeping you away was the kindest choice. I see now it was the cruelest. I closed my eyes for a moment. Let the pain wash over me. But this time, it didn't drown me. When I finally spoke, my voice was calm, tired, but steady. You didn't ruin the ceremony by including me, I said. You ruined our relationship by excluding me. She broke down, covering her mouth to hide her sobs. Her shoulders shook violently. I'm sorry, she cried. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't think. I didn't understand what I was doing until it was too late. I let her cry. Not because I enjoyed seeing her hurt. I didn't. But because she finally understood. Pain teaches faster than comfort. When she calmed, I finally spoke the truth I had held inside for months. You didn't just exclude me, I said quietly. You erased me. Her hands clenched around her teacup. Tears dripped onto the table. I continued, voice soft but unshakably honest. I wasn't your emotional burden. I wasn't your embarrassment. I wasn't a complication. You made me feel like I was. She sobbed again, whispering apologies through trembling lips. Then she asked, barely audible, Mom, can we fix this? It was a simple question, but the answer wasn't simple. Yes, I said after a moment, but not quickly, not easily, not without effort from both sides. She nodded, wiping her face. "I'll do anything," she whispered. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. The slow healing. The weeks that followed weren't magical. They weren't filled with instant forgiveness or perfect mother-daughter bonding. They were slow, awkward, sometimes painful, but they were honest. She visited often, not because she felt obligated, but because she wanted to. Sometimes she apologized again, tears in her eyes. Sometimes she brought coffee and just sat with me while I cooked. Sometimes she talked about therapy and how she was finally confronting grief she'd buried for years. Sometimes she said nothing at all, and silence between us felt safer than it had in months. One evening, she brought a box. Inside were photos, wedding photos. She hesitated before handing them to me. "I want you to see," she said, voice soft. I looked through them slowly. They were beautiful. She was beautiful. Everything looked so perfect, so curated, so full of joy. But then something inside me softened as I flipped through the images. She looked happy, truly happy, and for the first time since everything happened. I didn't feel jealousy, or bitterness, or pain. I felt hopeful, because healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about learning to hold the memory without letting it control you. The real realization. As the weeks passed, I realized something profound. My worth was never tied to an invitation, or a chair at a ceremony, or someone else's approval. My worth existed long before that wedding, long before the exclusion, long before the silence. I was a mother, a woman, a human being who loved deeply, imperfectly, fiercely. And the moment I reclaimed my dignity, everything changed. Not because Lily suddenly became perfect, not because I stopped hurting, but because I finally understood. You cannot heal a relationship by staying silent in your own suffering. You heal it by speaking truth to others and to yourself. The final message. One night, weeks later, she texted me, "Mom, I kept looking for you that day, even though I told myself I didn't want to." I stayed at the message, heart tightening. Then another arrived. "I thought keeping you away would protect me, but I hurt myself too. I want to do better. I want us to do better." For the first time in a long time, I believed her. In the months that followed, the sharpness of the pain softened. Not because I forgot, I could never forget, but because time has a way of smoothing the edges of even the deepest wounds. Healing, I learned, isn't loud. It doesn't look like movie scenes with dramatic apologies or sudden breakthroughs. It's subtle. It's in the way your heart doesn't drop each time your phone buzzes. It's in the way breathing gets easier when you walk past old reminders. It's in the way you can think about the hurt without feeling like you're drowning. And it's in the way you finally feel steady again, not because everything is perfect, but because you've grown around the pain instead of collapsing beneath it. Lily and I didn't magically return to the closeness we once had, but we began building something new, something more mature, something rooted in honesty instead of assumptions, fear, or silence. And I learned more about myself in those months than I had in years. The months after. At first, our relationship was fragile. She walked carefully, afraid of hurting me again. I walked slowly, afraid of trusting too quickly. But slowly, things shifted. She started visiting every week, not out of obligation, but because she wanted to. Sometimes she came alone, sometimes with stories, and sometimes with questions she never dared ask before, about grief, about marriage, about how I survived losing her father. We had conversations we should have had years ago. We talked about her fears, how she felt like she had to be perfect in front of Ethan's family, how she hid her emotions because she thought vulnerability meant weakness, how she thought crying on her wedding day would be a sign that she hadn't moved on. We talked about my pain, how loneliness feels when your child grows distant, how giving financially is easy but losing emotional connection is devastating, how grief doesn't ever fully go away, you just learn how to carry it. And we talked about Dad, the man she missed but didn't talk about enough, the man I loved deeply, the man whose absence still circled everything in our lives. For the first time, we let ourselves cry together about him, two women who had been trying too hard to be strong for each other. It didn't fix everything, but it opened the door. Rebuilding doesn't happen in grand gestures. It happens in small, consistent moments. A shared cup of tea, a visit just because, a text saying, "Are you okay today?" A simple, "I love you," spoken without guilt or fear. Little by little, the anger dissolved. Not because she deserved instant forgiveness, but because holding onto anger was hurting me more than it was teaching her. Letting go wasn't about excusing what she'd done. It was about freeing myself from the heaviness of it. The unexpected confession. One evening, months after the wedding, she came over with a small silver box in her hands. She looked nervous. Her fingers trembled slightly as she handed it to me. "What's this?" I asked gently. "Open it," she whispered. Inside was a printed photo from the wedding, the first dance. Her and Ethan. The fairy lights behind them blurred into soft halos. But that wasn't what made my breath catch. What made my heart tighten was the small handwritten note tucked behind the photo. It said, "I kept wishing you were there, even when I pretended I didn't." I looked up at her, blinking back tears. She swallowed hard. "Mom, I thought excluding you would protect me from falling apart. But not having you there was the thing that broke me the most." A tear slid down her cheek. "I ruined my own day. Not because of you, but because I tried to erase a part of my life that holds everything I am." I stood quietly, letting her words fill the room. Then she whispered, "You were the first person I should have walked toward that day. And you were the last person I deserved to face after what I did." Her voice cracked. "But you still answered my calls. You still met me. You still gave me a chance to make things right. I don't know how to thank you." I stepped closer and took her hand. "You don't thank me," I said softly. "You grow from it." She nodded, tears falling freely. "I am," she whispered. "I promise you, I am." And in that moment, I felt a shift, not backward, not toward the old version of us, but toward something sturdier, something that understood pain and still chose love anyway. The realization. Over those months, I learned something profound. You can love your child deeply and still refuse to be disrespected. Love doesn't erase boundaries. Love requires boundaries, because without them, love becomes sacrifice. And sacrifice without appreciation becomes resentment. And resentment kills relationships quietly, slowly, painfully. Setting boundaries didn't push her away. It brought her back with more humility, more honesty, and more understanding than she'd ever had before. And it made me see myself clearly again, not as a mother who failed, not as a woman who was unwanted, but as someone who deserved love that didn't require erasing herself. My message to you: if you're listening to my story right now, maybe you're a parent who's poured too much of yourself into someone who didn't see the value of it. Maybe you're a child who's grown distant from the person who raised you. Maybe you're someone standing in the space between love and pain, trying to make sense of both. So let me tell you what I learned. People can hurt you deeply without meaning to. People can love you and still make terrible decisions out of fear. And sometimes the ones who hurt us most are the ones we love most. But pain doesn't have to be the end. It can be a turning point. It can be the beginning of a new chapter, one where honesty replaces silence, boundaries replace assumptions, and understanding replaces resentment. Relationships can be rebuilt, not perfectly, not instantly, but patiently, slowly, gently. And you deserve relationships that grow with you, not ones that shrink you. You deserve honesty. You deserve peace. You deserve love without self-erasure. That's the lesson I carried from all of this. Did you like my story? Please like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far this story of mine travels. And that, my friend, is the end of what I lived, what I learned, and what I survived. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Sometimes, that's all a mother really wants.